Captain Jake Morrison stood quietly on the bridge of the HSS Defender and looked out at the beautiful blue-green planet spinning slowly below them. The planet was called Zelthara, and it was home to some of the friendliest aliens humans had ever met. 3 years had passed since Earth's first explorers found this world, and everything had been peaceful and good between the two species. The Zeltharians were different from humans in many ways, but they shared the same love for peace and learning. They looked like tall, graceful beings with smooth blue-green skin that could breathe both air and water. Their large eyes were kind, and their voices were soft when they spoke. Most importantly, they had welcomed humans with open arms and genuine friendship from the very first day. Jake remembered when he first met Council Prime Veltar, who was the leader of all Zeltharians. The alien had bowed deeply and said that humans were welcome in their space anytime. That moment had started a friendship between two worlds that grew stronger every day. The Zeltharians shared their amazing technology for cleaning, water, and growing food, while humans helped them build better defenses and taught them engineering skills. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez sat at her communication station and suddenly looked worried. She had been monitoring all the space channels like she always did, but something was wrong. Amy was one of the best communication officers in the human fleet, and Jake trusted her completely. She could speak several alien languages and always knew when trouble was coming. "Captain, we have an urgent message coming in from Zelthara Prime," Amy said with concern in her voice. "It's Council Prime Veltar himself, and he sounds very upset about something." Jake felt his stomach drop because Veltar never called unless something serious was happening. The alien leader was always calm and peaceful, so if he was upset, then something bad must be going on. Jake nodded to Amy and told her to put the message through to the main screen right away. The holographic display came to life and showed the familiar form of Council Prime Veltar. The Zeltharian leader looked tired and stressed, which was very unusual for him. His gill slits were moving quickly, which meant he was nervous or scared about something. Jake had learned to read Zeltharian body language over the past 3 years, and he could tell this was serious. "Captain Morrison," Veltar said through the translation system, "we need your help immediately. The Corvan Empire has sent us a message that we do not like. They are telling us to stop working with humans and give them our outer colonies, or they will attack us." Jake felt anger building inside him, but he kept his voice calm and professional. The Corvan Empire was known throughout the galaxy as a group of bullies who thought they were better than everyone else. They had been expanding their territory for years, and they did not care who they hurt. Most species were afraid of them because they had powerful weapons, and they were not afraid to use them. "What is their deadline?" Jake asked while trying to stay calm. "They have given us only 72 hours to decide," Veltar replied. "Captain Morrison, we value our friendship with humanity very much, but we are not fighters. We do not have strong weapons or big warships like other species do. Our people believe in peace, and we have never prepared for war." Commander Lisa Harper stepped forward from her position near the tactical station. She was Jake's second in command and one of the smartest officers he had ever worked with. Lisa had studied alien politics for years, and she understood the galaxy's power structure better than most people. She looked angry, and Jake could tell she was thinking the same thing he was. "Sir, we need to contact Earth Command right away," Lisa said firmly. "The Zeltharians have been our closest allies in this sector, and we cannot let anyone threaten them. If we allow the Corvans to bully our friends, then other species will think humans are weak." Jake nodded because he completely agreed with Lisa. Humanity had learned long ago that bullies only understood one language, and that was strength. The Corvans thought they could scare the Zeltharians because they were peaceful, but they had made one big mistake. They had forgotten that the Zeltharians had human friends, and humans did not abandon their allies. "Council Prime Veltar," Jake said, looking directly at the hologram, "please do not worry about this situation. Humanity has a simple rule that we follow everywhere we go. Anyone who threatens our friends is threatening us, and we do not allow that to happen. I am going to contact my superiors right now, and we will handle this problem." Veltar's large eyes showed relief and gratitude. "Thank you, Captain Morrison. We have always known that humans are loyal friends, but we did not want to drag you into our problems. The Corvan Empire is very powerful, and we do not want you to get hurt because of us." Jake smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that appeared on human faces when someone had made a very bad decision. The Corvans were about to learn something important about humans that they should have researched before making threats. Humans had evolved on a dangerous planet where only the strongest and smartest survived, and they had brought those survival instincts with them to the stars. Council Prime. "You are not dragging us into anything," Jake said. "The Corvins made this our problem when they threatened you. They clearly do not understand what it means to be humanity's friend. I promise you that we will handle this situation, and the Corvins will regret making threats against peaceful people." Amy looked up from her station with a serious expression. "Captain, I'm getting confirmation that the Corvin battle fleet has been detected moving towards Zeltharian space. Intelligence reports show 3 heavy cruisers and multiple smaller ships." Jake felt the familiar feeling of combat preparation flowing through his body. He had been in battles before, and he knew what needed to be done. The Corvins thought they could intimidate a peaceful species without consequences, but they were wrong. They were about to discover why humans had fought there, way to the top of Earth's food chain, and why that made them the most dangerous friends anyone could have. "Amy, send an immediate priority message to Earth Command," Jake ordered. "Tell them the situation and request permission to defend our allies. Also send a message to all human ships in this sector and tell them to prepare for possible combat operations." The bridge became busy as everyone started preparing for what might come next. Jake looked back at Veltar's hologram and saw hope returning to the aliens' eyes. The Zeltharians had trusted humans with their friendship, and now humans would show them what that friendship really meant. The Corvin Empire was about to learn a very expensive lesson about threatening humanity's allies. Admiral Ben Parker walked back and forth in the war room aboard Luna Base Alpha, which was Earth's most important space station. The emergency meeting had been called just hours after Captain Morrison sent his urgent report about the Corvin threat. Around the big holographic table sat the most important military leaders and government officials from Earth who made decisions about humanity's actions in space. The room was filled with tension as everyone understood that this moment would change everything. This was not just about protecting one alien species, but about showing the entire galaxy what humanity stood for. The decisions made in this room would echo across the stars for years to come, and every person there felt the weight of that responsibility. "The situation is very clear," Admiral Parker said in a strong voice that carried authority. "The Corvin Empire thinks they can scare our friends into abandoning their friendship with humanity. They believe we are too new to space and too weak to stop them. They have made a very big mistake." General Ron Carter, who was the head of Earth's military forces, pulled up displays showing where Corvin ships were moving. The screen showed red dots representing enemy vessels moving toward Zeltharian space, like a pack of wolves closing in on their prey. The sight made everyone in the room angry because they all knew what the Corvins planned to do. "Our intelligence reports show they are gathering a large battle group near the Zeltharian border," General Carter explained while pointing at the tactical display. "They have 3 heavy cruisers, which are their biggest warships, plus 12 destroyers, and something that looks like a ship designed to attack planets from space." Director Kate Sullivan, who spoke for the president, leaned forward and looked at the display with cold eyes. She had been dealing with alien politics for years, and she understood that this moment was about more than just one battle. This was about establishing humanity's place in the galaxy and showing everyone that humans protected their friends. "The president has been very clear about our policy when it comes to protecting our allies," Director Sullivan said firmly. "We have sent diplomatic messages to the Corvin High Command, warning them to stop their aggressive actions, but they have ignored every attempt at peaceful communication." "That is exactly what we expected," said Colonel Steve Walsh from across the table. "The Corvins only respect strength and power. They see diplomacy as weakness, and they think peaceful species are there to be conquered. They have built their entire empire on fear and intimidation." Admiral Parker activated another display that showed where human ships were positioned throughout the galaxy. Green dots representing Earth's warships appeared on the screen, and everyone could see that humanity had been preparing for this kind of situation. The fleet was smaller than the Corvin forces, but every person in the room knew that humans had advantages that did not show up on simple ship counts. "I am authorizing the immediate deployment of Task Force Retribution," Admiral Parker announced. "The HSS Vengeance, HSS Liberty, and HSS Thunderstrike will lead the operation along with their escort squadrons. Captain Morrison's ship will serve as our advanced scout and intelligence gatherer." The room became quiet as everyone understood what this meant. This would be humanity's first major military action since joining the galactic community. Every species in known space would be watching to see how humans handled this crisis. The outcome would determine whether humanity was seen as a strong ally worth respecting, or a weak species that could be pushed around. Admiral Director Sullivan said quietly but with steel in her voice, "Earth Command has given authorization for the use of our most advanced weapon systems, if the situation requires it. The Corvan Empire needs to understand that humanity does not make empty threats when it comes to protecting our friends." General Carter pulled up another screen showing detailed information about Corvan military tactics and ship designs. The data had been gathered by human intelligence agents who had been watching the Empire for months. What they had learned would give humanity important advantages in the coming battle. The Corvans fight using traditional galactic warfare methods, General Carter explained. They form battle lines and fight formal engagements where the biggest ships try to overpower their enemies through superior firepower. They do not expect unconventional tactics or surprise attacks. Colonel Walsh smiled grimly as he looked at the Corvan ship specifications. They also rely heavily on energy shields that are designed to stop plasma weapons and ion cannons. Their defenses are not built to handle the kind of kinetic weapons that humans prefer to use. Admiral Parker nodded as he thought about the battle plans that were already forming in his mind. Humanity had learned warfare in the dangerous environment of Earth, where survival meant being smarter, faster, and more adaptable than anything else. Those lessons would serve them well against an enemy that had grown comfortable with easy victories. "Our ships will use pack tactics and hit-and-run strategies," Admiral Parker said. "We will not give them the formal battle they expect. Instead, we will show them what happens when they face predators who evolved on the most dangerous planet in known space." Director Sullivan stood up and looked around the room at all the military leaders. "Everyone needs to understand that this is about more than just winning one battle. We are establishing humanity's reputation in the galaxy. Every species will judge us based on how we handle this crisis. The Corvans think they can bully peaceful species without consequences," Admiral Parker said as the meeting began to end. "They are about to learn that touching humanity's friends is the same as attacking humanity itself. We will show them why Earth's children survived and thrived in a galaxy full of dangers." As the officers left the meeting room to prepare their ships and crews, Admiral Parker stood alone looking at the tactical displays. He thought about all the young humans who would soon face their first real battle in space. They were the children of a species that had fought its way to the top of the food chain on Earth, and now they would prove that those instincts were just as useful among the stars. The message would be sent across the galaxy in the language that bullies understood best. The Corvan Empire had made their choice, and now they would face the consequences of threatening humanity's friends. The Corvan flagship Supremacy moved through space like a dark sword cutting through the void. Its black hull was covered with plasma cannons and ion torpedo launchers that could destroy entire cities. War Commander Zekthar stood on his command deck looking out at the stars with contempt in his reptilian eyes. He was a tall creature with scales that gleamed under the ship's lights and claws that could tear through metal. A young species that has barely been in space for 3 centuries. Zekthar hissed to his second-in-command battle captain Morkes. "They think they can stand against the mighty Corvan Empire just to protect these pathetic water-dwellers. Their arrogance will be their destruction." Morkes was smaller than his commander, but just as cruel. He had studied the intelligence reports about humanity for weeks, and some of what he learned made him uncomfortable. The humans did not fight like other species in the galaxy, and that worried him even though he would never admit it to his superior. "Commander," Morkes said carefully because he knew Zekthar did not like to hear bad news. "Our intelligence division has discovered some disturbing information about human military methods. They do not follow the standard rules of galactic warfare that civilized species use." Zekthar turned his yellow eyes toward his subordinate with interest. The Corvan Empire had conquered dozens of species over the centuries, and they always used the same tactics. Most aliens fought in predictable ways that made them easy to defeat once you understood their patterns. "Tell me what you have learned," Zekthar commanded. "They do not issue formal challenges before attacking," Morkes explained while looking at his datapad. "They do not fight honor duels between champions, and they do not form organized battle lines like proper warriors. Our strategists are concerned about their concept of what they call total war. Meanwhile, in Zeltharian space, Captain Morrison met with Council Prime Veltar in the beautiful crystal spires of their capital city. The buildings were made of a special material that sparkled like diamonds in the sunlight and created rainbow patterns on the ground. It was a place of peace and learning that had never known the sound of weapons or the fear of invasion. Velthar led Morrison to a viewing chamber where they could see the latest messages from the Corvan Empire. The alien leader's face showed worry and sadness as he explained what the enemy was demanding. His large eyes reflected the light from the crystal walls, and his gill slits moved slowly as he tried to stay calm. "They have increased their demands," Velthar said while showing Morrison the communication device. "Now they want complete removal of all human presence from our space. They claim that humanity is a contaminating influence on what they consider their rightful territory for expansion." Morrison looked at the Corvan message and felt anger building inside him like a fire. The words were full of arrogance and contempt for both humans and Zeltharians. The Corvans clearly thought they could take whatever they wanted, just because they had bigger ships and more weapons. They were about to learn that size was not everything in a fight. "Council Prime," Morrison said with a smile that was cold and dangerous. "Humanity has an old saying that goes like this: if you mess with our friends, then you mess with us." The Corvan Empire is about to discover exactly what those words mean. The communication system activated, and Admiral Parker's voice came through clearly from the human fleet. Morrison could hear the determination in his superior's tone, and he knew that Earth's military leaders had made their decision. There would be no more talking or negotiating with bullies who only understood violence. "Captain Morrison," Admiral Parker said, "Task Force Retribution has entered the sector and is moving into position. The Corvan High Command has refused our final diplomatic offer and threatened to attack any human ship that interferes with their plans. You are now authorized to implement Protocol 7. Velthar noticed the sudden change in Captain Morrison's behavior, and it surprised him. The friendly human explorer who had shared meals and told stories about Earth was gone. In his place stood something much more dangerous that reminded Velthar of the predatory creatures he had seen in human nature documentaries. This was what humans became when their friends were threatened. "Council Prime," Morrison said quietly but with steel in his voice, "I strongly recommend that you evacuate your people from the frontier colonies to the safer inner systems. What is about to happen here should not be witnessed by civilians. War is ugly, and humans fight differently than other species." The HSS Defender's engines powered up, and Morrison could feel the ship responding to his commands like a living thing. The crew moved with practiced efficiency as they prepared their weapons and defensive systems. Every human on board understood that they were about to make history and show the galaxy what happened when someone threatened their allies. "Amy, open a channel to all Corvan ships in the area," Morrison ordered. "Channel open, sir," Amy responded. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Human Defense Force," he said in a voice that carried across space to the Corvan fleet. "You have threatened peaceful beings who are under our protection. You have ignored our diplomatic warnings and continued your aggressive actions. This is your final opportunity to withdraw from Zeltharian space before we show you why humanity survived on the most dangerous planet in the galaxy." War Commander Zekthar received the human message on his bridge and laughed with contempt. He had heard similar threats from dozens of species before conquering them and adding their territory to the Empire. Humans were just another weak species that would soon learn to fear Corvan power. "Pathetic," Zekthar said to his crew. "These humans actually think they can intimidate us with words. Show them what happens to those who stand against the Corvan Empire. All ships prepare for battle and target their flagship first." The space around Zelthara began to fill with warships as both fleets moved into position. The Corvan vessels formed traditional battle lines with their biggest ships in the center and smaller vessels protecting the flanks. It was a formation that had worked for centuries against conventional enemies. The human ships moved differently, like a pack of wolves circling their prey. They did not form neat lines or follow predictable patterns. Instead, they spread out and approached from multiple directions in a way that confused the Corvan commanders who had never seen such tactics before. Captain Morrison looked out at the enemy fleet and felt the ancient instincts of his species awakening. Humans had not conquered Earth through superior technology or overwhelming numbers. They had survived and thrived by being smarter, more adaptable, and more ruthless than anything else on their planet. Now those same qualities would be tested among the stars. The first shots of what would later be called the Corvan humiliation were fired when 3 Corvan destroyers opened fire on a Zeltharian medical ship that was trying to evacuate wounded civilians from the border colonies. The white hospital ship had clear medical symbols painted on its hull and was broadcasting emergency frequencies to show it was not a military target, but the Corvins did not care about such things. Captain Morrison watched his tactical display as the medical ship's shields flared under the Corvin attack. The peaceful vessel had no weapons and could only try to escape while the enemy destroyers continued firing. Morrison felt rage building inside him as he realized the Corvins were deliberately targeting helpless civilians to send a message of fear. "Sir, the medical ship is badly damaged and losing life support," reported Lieutenant Dan Murphy, who was the weapons officer aboard the HSS Defender. "They are requesting immediate assistance and have wounded Zeltharians on board, including children." Morrison's face became hard as stone when he heard about the children. Humans had strong protective instincts toward young beings of any species, and seeing them under attack triggered something deep and primal in every human mind. The Corvins had just made the worst possible mistake they could have made. "Amy, broadcast this message on all frequencies," Morrison ordered in a voice that was deadly calm. "All ships, this is Captain Morrison. The Corvin Empire has fired upon a medical vessel carrying wounded civilians, including children. They have crossed every line of civilized warfare. We are now weapons-free and authorized to use any force necessary. Show them why humanity does not abandon its friends." The HSS Defender's railgun spoke first with a sound like thunder that echoed through the ship's hull. The tungsten projectiles launched from the magnetic accelerators moved at incredible speeds that made them nearly impossible to see or stop. The lead Corvin destroyer never had time to react before the metal slugs tore through its shields like they were made of paper. War Commander Zekthar stood on the bridge of the Supremacy and watched in shock as his destroyer began venting atmosphere and spinning out of control. The ship's hull had been punctured in dozens of places, and emergency lights were flashing across its surface. He had never seen weapons that could penetrate Corvin shields so easily. "How are their weapons cutting through our defenses like that?" Zekthar demanded from his tactical officer, who was frantically checking his instruments. "Commander," the officer replied with fear in his voice, "they are not using energy weapons like plasma cannons or ion beams. These are solid projectiles moving at significant fractions of light speed. Our shields are designed to stop energy attacks, not physical objects traveling at these velocities." The human ships moved through space like predators hunting prey and used tactics that terrified the Corvin commanders. Instead of forming battle lines and fighting formal engagements, the humans appeared from multiple directions, struck hard and fast, then disappeared back into the void before return fire could be coordinated. It was unlike anything the Corvins had ever experienced. Admiral Parker's voice echoed across the human fleet from his flagship. "All units implement Darwin Protocol immediately. Show them what millions of years of evolution look like when it comes to warfare." The HSS Vengeance and HSS Liberty flanked the Corvin formation, while the HSS Thunderstrike performed what looked like a suicidal frontal assault against the enemy's main battle line. The Corvin commanders thought the human ship had made a fatal error and concentrated their fire on it, expecting an easy kill. "Commander," Nina Brooks stood on the bridge of the Thunderstrike as enemy fire hammered against her ship's experimental shielding system. The new technology had been developed specifically for this kind of attack, and it turned the seemingly reckless charge into a devastating breakthrough that split the Corvin formation in half. "Target their flagship with the main cannon," Brooks ordered as her ship's most powerful weapon began charging to full power. "Time to show them what happens when you threaten innocent people." The massive plasma beam that erupted from the Thunderstrike was unlike any weapon the Corvins had encountered before. It was not just a tool of destruction, but a statement of human determination that carved through the Supremacy's shields and armor like they were made of soft metal. The Corvin flagship shuddered under the impact and began listing to one side. Zekthar found himself thrown against a bulkhead as his ship took damage that should have been impossible. Emergency alarms were sounding throughout the vessel, and damage reports were flooding in from every section. Half of his weapons were offline and his engines were operating at reduced power. "Sir, we are receiving reports from the entire fleet," his communications officer said with panic in his voice. "Every ship is taking heavy damage and our conventional tactics are completely ineffective against their attack patterns." The human fleet continued to move like a pack of wolves that had found wounded prey. They struck from unexpected angles, used the debris of destroyed ships as cover, and coordinated their attacks in ways that the Corvin battle computers could not predict or counter. It was warfare reduced to its most basic and terrible form. Captain Morrison opened a communication channel to the crippled Corvin flagship as his ship moved in for the final attack. He wanted Zekthar to understand exactly why his empire was being defeated so completely and so quickly. "This is Captain Morrison of the Human Defense Force," he said in a voice that carried the authority of an apex predator. "You came here to intimidate peaceful beings who are under our protection. Instead, you have discovered why humanity survived the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. We adapt, we overcome, and we protect our own at any cost." Zekthar listened to the human's words and felt something he had never experienced before in his long military career. Fear was creeping into his mind as he realized that his empire had attacked something far more dangerous than they had imagined. These humans were not just another weak species to be conquered, but predators who had evolved in the crucible of a deadly world. "You have exactly 10 minutes to withdraw all Corvin ships from Zeltharian space," Morrison continued. "If you refuse, we will show you what total war really means. We will hunt down every one of your ships and destroy them completely. The choice is yours, but choose quickly because our patience has limits." The Corvin fleet began to retreat as damaged ships struggled to reach the edge of the system. Many vessels were too badly damaged to jump to hyperspace and had to be abandoned by their crews. The pride of the Corvin Empire had been shattered in less than an hour by a species they had dismissed as weak newcomers as the last enemy ship disappeared into hyperspace. Morrison looked out at the rescued Zeltharian medical vessel and felt satisfaction in knowing that innocent lives had been protected. The galaxy had just learned an important lesson about what happened when someone threatened humanity's friends. 6 months after the Corvin defeat, the entire galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. Ambassador Helen Carter stood before the Galactic Council, which was a massive assembly of different alien species that made decisions about how civilizations interacted with each other. The Great Hall was filled with beings of every shape and size imaginable, from crystalline entities to gas clouds that somehow achieved consciousness. The aftermath of humanity's swift and complete victory over the Corvin Empire had sent shockwaves throughout known space that were still being felt. Every species in the galaxy was talking about how a relatively new civilization had destroyed one of the most feared military powers in just a few hours. The implications of this event were staggering, and everyone wanted to understand what it meant for the future. The human response to Corvin aggression was unprecedented in our recorded history, declared Council Speaker Threndok, who was a tall crystalline being whose species had been observing galactic politics for thousands of years. "Never before have we witnessed such a swift and complete reversal of what appeared to be an unwinnable situation." Ambassador Carter nodded respectfully to the ancient being while maintaining the dignity that Earth expected from its representatives. She had been chosen for this position because she understood both human nature and alien psychology better than most people. Her job was to explain humanity's actions in a way that other species could understand and accept. "Honorable Speaker," Carter said in a clear voice that carried throughout the vast chamber, "humanity has always believed that actions must have consequences. The Corvin Empire chose to threaten our allies and attack innocent civilians, including children. We simply demonstrated why such behavior is unacceptable and will not be tolerated." In the observer section, War Commander Zekthar sat in disgrace watching the proceedings with bitter understanding of how completely his empire had been humiliated. He was no longer a military leader, but a living reminder of what happened when someone underestimated humanity's commitment to protecting their friends. The Corvin Empire had been forced to pay enormous reparations to the Zeltharian Republic and signed treaties that effectively ended their expansion plans. Council Prime Veltar spoke from the Zeltharian delegation platform with gratitude and respect in his voice. The peaceful alien leader had seen his people saved from destruction and his civilization protected by human courage and determination. He wanted the entire galaxy to understand what kind of species humanity really was beneath their friendly diplomatic exterior. The Council must understand that humanity's defense of our people was not merely a military action, Veltar explained to the assembled delegates. It was a demonstration of what they call loyalty, which is a concept that runs much deeper in their species than we initially realized. They do not form alliances for convenience but create bonds that are sacred to them. The holographic displays throughout the chamber showed current galactic power structures and territorial boundaries. Where once the Corvan Empire had been marked as a major threat, controlling vast regions of space, their territory was now much smaller and marked with restrictions. Meanwhile, dozens of smaller species had approached humanity seeking defensive agreements and trade partnerships. Admiral Parker, who was attending as Earth's military advisor, addressed the council with the calm authority of someone who had proven his point through action rather than words. He wore his dress uniform with pride, knowing that he represented a species that had earned respect through their willingness to fight for others rather than themselves. Humanity seeks peaceful coexistence with all sentient species, Admiral Parker stated firmly. However, let the record clearly show that we will not hesitate to defend those who stand with us. This is not a threat, but a promise that we make to every civilization in this chamber. Choose your friends wisely because we protect ours completely. Speaker Threndok's crystalline form pulsed with colors that indicated deep contemplation. According to those who understood his species' communication methods, the ancient being had seen empires rise and fall over the millennia, but humanity's approach to galactic politics was unlike anything in his experience. The Council acknowledges humanity's position and the effectiveness of their methods, Threndok said carefully. However, we must ask for clarification about the limits of this protection. How far will humanity go to defend their allies, and what actions might trigger such a response? Ambassador Carter's answer was simple, direct, and left no room for misunderstanding. Every delegate in the chamber listened carefully because they knew her words would determine how their own species interacted with humans in the future. The message she delivered would echo across the galaxy for generations. There are no limits when it comes to defending our friends, Carter said with absolute conviction. Harm them and you harm us. Threaten them and you threaten us. Attack them and you will face the full might of humanity's military forces. The choice of how to proceed belongs to each species individually. As the session concluded, private communication channels throughout the chamber buzzed with activity as species reassessed their relationships and policies. Several aggressive civilizations quietly canceled expansion plans that would have brought them into conflict with humanity's allies. Others began opening diplomatic channels with Earth, seeking their own protective agreements. Captain Morrison, who had been promoted to admiral following his actions during the crisis, stood aboard the new HSS Guardian, which was now permanently stationed in Zeltharian space. Commander Rodriguez, who had also received a promotion, approached with the latest intelligence reports, showing how dramatically the galactic political landscape had shifted. Sir, we are detecting significant changes in military postures throughout this sector, Rodriguez reported. The hegemony has completely withdrawn from the Outer Rim territories, and the Syndicate has opened formal diplomatic channels requesting trade negotiations. Morrison nodded while watching the peaceful traffic between human and Zeltharian ships through the viewport of his new command. Merchant vessels moved freely between the two species worlds, carrying goods and passengers in complete safety. It was exactly the kind of future that humanity had hoped to build when they first ventured into space. Good, Morrison said with satisfaction. Maybe now the galaxy understands that humanity does not seek to conquer or dominate others. We prefer to make friends and build partnerships. But those friendships are sacred to us, and we will defend them with everything we have. The message had been delivered across the stars with perfect clarity through the universal language of decisive action. Humanity had announced their arrival as a galactic power not through conquest or intimidation, but through an unshakable commitment to those who earned their trust and friendship. The warning had been given, demonstrated, beyond doubt, and would be remembered for countless generations throughout the galaxy. In the end, the greatest weapon humanity possessed was not their advanced technology or their innovative military tactics, but their willingness to fight without reservation for those they called friends. In a galaxy full of temporary alliances and political convenience that made them both the most valuable ally and the most dangerous enemy any species could imagine.